Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded July 16, 2019.
It's 5 o'clock. We'll call the Portage County Board to order. Roll call. If you're here, press present.
Yeah, I'm here.
And confirm.
It's yes for those of you that need glasses.
I was going to say, can I just press yes?
Press confirm for me.
I'm Charlie. Confirm.
Pointing at it doesn't seem
Don't
to.
worry about it. It's fine.
Jeannie can't confirm.
Genie broke it.
Tell her to leave, then.
I even tried.
Or to go back to a different country.
That's an idea.
She tried that too.
Go yes again.
Start over.
Try yes again.
Yes again. Go yes again.
Yes again.
That's current.
There, you got it. Good
He's
job.
just
Good job.
confirmed.
23 present, 2 excused.
Tell me how it should be done.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Supervisor Charlie Gussel.
The Portage County Board and our staff have many projects and programs in process. We ask God to give us the knowledge and the wisdom to make the correct decisions benefiting our county. Some decisions affect us immediately, others years into the future. Most can recall our past 20 to 30, 40 years. Help us visualize Portage County and Stevens Point as they are today, and moreover, 75 years into the future. God, please give us the wisdom to make the correct decisions now and in the future. Thank you, God. Amen.
Amen. Good job, Charlie.
Review and approval of June 18th, 2019 County Board minutes. Motion by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor O'Brien. Corrections or changes? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Correspondence.
In your packet, there was a memo from Chair Al Haga regarding the upcoming county board meeting dates related to the budgets, and a update from Chris Holman, County Executive, July County Updates. And on your desk today were distributed the Green Book of County Facts and the WCA, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Counties Officials Directory.
Members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their requests at this time with such comments subject as to reasonable control of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. Anybody from the public who would like to speak? Okay. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everybody know that we are going to have a little 5-minute break at the end of our resolutions and ordinances so that the deputy can set up for our active shooting training. He's got to get some things in place, but we put that on the very last item on the agenda. I think we have a few people that need to leave. Supervisor Dodge, Supervisor Pataki, and is there one more? I think somebody else. And Supervisor Gifford, Supervisor Johnson. You have a question or you need to leave as well? Okay.
I'll be exiting
Okay.
as well.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. Presentations. Sheriff Mike Lucas, Sheriff's Office 2018 Annual Report.
It is indeed.
Well, I shouldn't have turned that to 55. Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, County Board. First, I hope you had an opportunity to go through this and read it prior to, because I think that it gives a lot of insight in regards to the Sheriff's Office, the 5 divisions, and the day-to-day operations, which I'm just going to touch base briefly on today and then take some questions at the end. So as you can see, and if you follow along, if you want to in the report, that's fine. Starting with the page 1, you can talk about the big picture for the Sheriff's Office. Our electronic monitoring, when I came in office, I vowed that I was going to get this up, and we are averaging now from instead of 3 up to 21. So keeping our jail population lower, bringing people out in the community, keeping them active, and keeping their jobs. The other thing too is later on in the year, the long-term planning facility, it was kind of stated, let's look at the remodel instead of building. And after looking at what the code would be, keeping the jail the same size, I think it brought the jail up 8 beds. But leaving it in a linear position, but bringing it up to code, it was 25 million. I think that was scrapped after the 25 million came up. So that was a lot of work by our staff, and I'm going to mention that real quick. Is my staff is outstanding from the 5 divisions. They've go a lot of work into this annual report. So I want to give them kudos. I also want to give kudos to my chief deputy for gathering all those facts and putting them together for me. So for the presentation and for the yearly report. When you talk about staff, you can see that the Sheriff's Office is probably one of the closest and the highest staffing for the county. We have 108 full-time employees with about 10 to 20 part-time employees in the 5 divisions. You can see that we have 47 sworn officers, 32 corrections officers, 19 communication staff, an administrative services manager, 4 law enforcement record specialists, an emergency medical service coordinator, emergency management coordinator, a deputy emergency management coordinator, and 1 fleet technician. Since the onset that I have been elected, I have been putting in requests for staffing shortages, and you can see below it talks about deputies, it talks about corrections, it talks about communications. For our patrol, you can see that at many times in our county, we have 1 officer patrolling for 270 square miles. So we have not added any deputies for quite some time, so you'll see that coming up, but the request for the deputies. Also the corrections, we operate at about 70% staffing most of the time. This is a concern. You don't see all the time all the reports in regards to attempted suicides in our jail and the incidents that occur because we keep that out of the public eye. I'm thinking that we're going to start letting the public know, because we've just had one recently, and I think it's important for you to understand the circumstance our staff are in that corrections facility. And the last one is the communication center. All you're aware, we have been short in the communication center since I've been elected 5 years ago. I've been drastically trying to fill our communications spots. They are tough to fill. The study states we should be at 26. We are at 19. That is an issue. The issue is being crammed in a small room, being crammed in a space that is not suited for communications, has a high turnover rate. When you move to page 8, talk a little bit about the operations division. Operations division, as I told you, has 47 sworn officers, that including myself, all management staff, and everybody in this operations. We have 22 patrol deputies, 4 patrol sergeants, and 3 shift commanders, which are our lieutenants. This is a 24-hour service, 365 days. We are primary service in all but Stevens Point and Plover, which we are back up to them, but we can become primary in those areas if needed. You can see on the bottom of the page some of the additional regular duties that the deputies perform. That's just a few. There's a lot more to this in regards to the deputies being specialized throughout the county. We also have 2 canine units, Lady and Yent. And with those canine units, they're used for all different types of activities in the county, outside the county, and surrounding counties. Our canine units were dispatched out 198 times in 2018. You can see some of the arrests that were made, but they are used in our community for search and rescue, for tracking, and for community policing. So they are a very benefit, and they are sustainable by the community and their donations. You're also going to see in operations is the community officer. And actually, you're going to see him tonight because he's going to be doing the presentation on the active shooter presentation at the end of the county board meeting tonight, and that's Deputy Eric Kepsel. Our community resource officer, we have one throughout the county that includes all our schools, outlying schools, and all businesses. He does all the presentations for Counteract, school programs to active shooters. He does the Citizens Academy, which you might want to make a note. We're taking applications if anybody's interested. You can see me or Deputy Kepsel after this meeting. Applications are due by August 7th?
August 10th.
August 10th. So the applications will be due August 10th, and I encourage anybody that has not been through it to go out and do this, and people that have gone it, promote it to your county board members. Let's move on. Oh, the community officer also does not only the Citizens Academy, but a bunch of other community programs throughout in the office, in the sheriff's office, along with the DNR programs, and helps out with all kinds of instruction throughout the community. You can see in regards to the Detective Bureau on page 13, that is also part of the operations. We have 4 detectives, 1 drug officer, supervised by a detective sergeant. Our detectives were assigned about 230 cases this last year, and 93 of those we have specialized in forensic crimes, did 93 examinations of forensics, which is computers, phones, and things like that. You can also see on the bottom of the page, drugs seized by the Sheriff's Office, 2018. It includes, actually it's 144 pounds of marijuana, 352 grams of methamphetamine, 36 grams of LSD, and 32 grams of heroin. And you're going to say, oh, that's a lot of marijuana. Why are we doing that? But that was the one marijuana bus that had 140 pounds transported in. So I saw it online in regards to posting for the county board, and they were saying, why are we arresting for marijuana? Because it is a law, and it's 140 pounds coming into this community illegally. So that's why we do it. You can also see on the Central Wisconsin Drug Task Force, we are involved with 8 counties. In that 8 counties, you can see the mass increase in certain categories, and I want to draw your attention on page 14 towards the bottom of the page from 2017 to 2018 in the methamphetamines. You can see that's in grams. In 2017, we had 1,084 grams. In 2018, we had almost 1,800 grams. You can also see the arrests in regards to felony and misdemeanors jumped from 800 to 1,000 to misdemeanors of 758. So the drug problem is increasing. It used to be, if you look back at 15, it was heroin was more prevalent than the methamphetamines. Now we've moved to methamphetamines more prevalent than the heroin. And that's just because we cut off the suppliers for the heroin, and now methamphetamine is way easier to be made around this area with the chemicals that are out there. Then you look at our court services unit. Our court services unit, you run through this and you can see how many people actually come to the county board. Last year we screened 737 people, which is quite a bit coming to the county board meetings. That was a big push a couple years ago in regards to doing that, and we've also seized certain things in regards to contraband coming into the county board. But the total number of screened throughout the year is 37,109. So that's 37,000 people coming up here through courts that our court services unit screens and monitors. And you can also see the appraise, the escorts and transports. I think those are important because that's part of our unit. We have a 5-division unit up here with 2 trip guys, 2 court guys, and a supervisor, along with our community officer. But you can see that they have 652 escorts. That means that's 652 people that have to come up to court. I say this because when you're talking about building a court away from the jail, that's 652 transports you'd have to take from our jail to the courts, because that is something that they request that we have mandated that we have to bring them to court. We also had 1,119 transports. That includes the transports to and from Wapaka that we have a contract for that I'll talk a little bit about in the future for our costs. Next page, we talk a little bit about some of the specialized things that we do. Department of Natural Resources, we do many programs in regards to promoting the Sheriff's Office in a in a good light what I talk about, trying to get out there to the kids to show that we're different than just writing tickets. So we do educational programs for snowmobile, boat, and ATV programs. In that, we also do patrols. The state gives us grant money to go out and do snowmobile, boat, and ATV patrols, and you can see the hours that we put in, and it's reimbursed through the state between 60 and 100%. We also get equipment, boats, snowmobiles, and ATVs. Same way, we get a 5-year depreciation schedule that they pay 100% for our equipment. So it's a good deal the state offers us, and with the ever-mounting town of, the townships going to these ATVs and opening them up, we're going to be getting more and more demand for our ATV patrols. Communication Center. Talked a little bit briefly about that. We are way understaffed. We have a room, if you haven't been, I think just about everybody here has been a tour of the sheriff's office and the jail, and I appreciate that because that shows that you're really interested in seeing the issues that we do have. But the problem you have is there, if you want to go up there and I actually want to talk to our dispatchers, I can't. Because the lights are on, you can't talk, and you can hear it over the radio. So there's no real privacy in there, and when there's an emergency situation going on, you can't communicate back and forth without going over the air, and then you can't hear what they're saying on their microphone. So it's not an ideal situation, but you can see that we have a ranging years of service in regards to our contacts. They have between 1 and 30 years. The average throughout the state, I think, is 5 years. So our average is 13 years, which is pretty darn good for our turnover rate that we've had. This last year brought numerous challenges to that we had some of our seasoned dispatchers retiring, and we had several resignations because they just didn't feel it was a fit for them. Again, I want to emphasize that the study that the county commissioned back in 2010 stated, hey, we need 26 dispatchers in there, and we're at 19. So I think we need to seriously take a look at these studies that we're paying for and commissioning for, and actually follow through with what they're telling us. Our dispatchers monitor at least 20 radio channels, and you can see on page 20, these are just part of them, but they have to be ever vigilant in regards to what they're listening to and who they're responding to, because they are the communication center for Portage County. I just strongly emphasize that you take a look at this communication center and you see the drastic amount of calls for service that you can see down below. In 2018, they had 117,536 calls into the comm center. And out of those, there were 16,000 of them were emergent and 101,000 non-emergent. So that's about almost 10,000 calls per month. And that's an increase of about 300 calls per year. That's about what we're averaging, between 300 and 500 calls per year, increasing on an annual basis. Again, our hiring process, we're constantly rolling over and reoccurring with our eligibility list. Right now, we're training 3 at a time, which is very hard and stressful on our field training officers and our comm center, because we have 3 people in there that are being monitored. So sometimes we'll have 7, 8 people in that comm center in a small condensed area trying to train. They also have received some awards. This last year, the Communications Center was presented the Hope Award, prestigious award given to the Portage County Mental Health and Suicide Coalition for the Communications Center service to the community. So these guys, do a great job with stress, and they're awarded for it by some of these awards that we're talking about. If you move to page 25. 2018 brought on 2 divisions for the Sheriff's Office, and I'm going to apologize right now because I see one page has been not added to your annual report, and that is the Emergency Management Division. I will talk about it. You will have it. It will be posted on our line, and I will make sure it gets a copy to you that's inserted. But Emergency Medical Services and Emergency Management were added in 2018. The Sheriff's Office is separated, which was long overdue, and Emergency Medical Services now is responsible for the 4 service providers, ambulances, 12 emergency medical responder groups, and the county EMS system is supported by a technical team consisting of the medical director and several service directors, and we have a heck of an EMR group out there. So the emergency medical responders, make this service outstanding out in the county. Emergency Management Division. This also got separated. It used to be EM and EMS together, which is long overdue. The EM division, we went to a nationwide search and we actually got the staffing, one from Vermont and one from Alaska. These guys are excellent and have trying to rebuild the county's disaster management capability to provide professional coordination when a disaster strikes, and they want to support local disaster preparedness, resilience, and coordination. So there's three things that they're working very diligent on, and that is the staffing, making sure that we retain staff, which I think we have great staff and are going to be retained. The communications, restoring and building open lines of communication. And then relationships, building the relationships back out in the county that have been broken or not committed to. Let's see. I'm trying to go up because I know you guys have a 45-minute presentation at the end too. So. If we look on page 33, the Corrections Division. The Correction Division employs 26 full-time corrections officers, 5 full-time corrections corporals, a captain and a sergeant, and a juvenile detention superintendent. The jail has also a full-time social worker assigned by the Health and Human Services and a part-time psychiatrist from Health and Human Services. They also have 2 full-time teachers assigned to the Juvenile Detention Center by the Stevens Point School District. When you're going through the Corrections Division, you can see like on page 34, we contract out the food service. We have, they serve about 77,000 meals a year in our corrections facility. We have different mental health, and I think that I'm on a mental health committee, actually, executive committee, and I thought this would be interesting for you also. Doing a study in 2018 out of our 1,782 bookings, just people that are claiming mental health issues, there were 528 inmates, so that brings it up to 29%. For the beginning of 2019, we had 446 bookings, and 142 inmates reported some mental health issues, so that's 32%. So why I'm saying that is because what we're housing in our corrections facility at the low end, 30%, and that's people claiming the mental health. That's not people actually being diagnosed it. So then you can see all the programs that I talked to you about in regards to that are important to Portage County and why I keep inmates here. You can see the treatment education, skills training. You can see the alcohol and drug abuse services. You can see the trauma abuse services, the veteran services, chaplain, education, GED, HSED, transition services, juvenile education, grandparent program, independent living skills. All those are important for Portage County because the other counties do not do these. So that's why I emphasize that, the people that stay here get these benefits of these programs. And I would share a letter, but I forgot it, from an inmate that just got released stating how thankful he was for these programs and how it turned his life around, and he hopes he never sees anybody in uniform again. But you can also see on page 39 the adult jail population. It talks about our daily population. Last year was 117.10. That includes in our jail 60.5, SHIP 35.5, and then on the home detention program of 21.1. We'll talk a little bit about how the savings in regards to Portage County, but just for the home monitoring, it's $130,000 to $175,000 savings with the home detention program. When you're, I'll talk a little bit about juvenile, then I'm going to talk about the shipping costs in regards to some of that. But on page 41, you can see that our juvenile detention facility has an average daily population of 8. Remember, this max beds of 14, but with 80% of the state guidelines, usually the max is 12, and with juveniles, it's a lot different because they're, what I'd say, temperament and the separation is needed more. So when you're looking at this, don't think that the numbers are low, it's just that the needs are higher. You can also see that Portage County had an annual savings for housing here instead of shipping of about $106,000. And then you can see on the next page where it talks about annual average in previous year. You can see last year we had 1.9 average Portage County juveniles in our facility compared to 2.1 the year before. So we were able to contract out a little bit more, so we brought in $370,000 worth of revenue from other counties to house, and that's the big increase is because the majority of juvenile facilities throughout the state have been closing or not receiving any more juveniles from out of county because they have so many in their county that they need those beds. The next page, here's where the costs are. A lot of times, every time I come, everybody wants to know in regards to the shipping, the cumulative costs and things like that. And you can see for 2018, our contract for the beds was $467,000, a little bit more, just for the housing of inmates over in Waupaca County and surrounding counties. And you can also see that the transport costs were about $197,500, bringing a cumulative cost of about $665,000. And since we began doing shipping back in 1999, you can see that we've spent $10,783,000. Also, further on to the right, you can see the population. So when it talks about maximum daily population, that's the max we had one day throughout the year. That was the maximum population we had. So when you're figuring out jail bed needs, you have to figure out your maximum daily population to get your jail bed needs. So that's how you kind of figure it. 136 with 80% of that is what you're needing. Average in jail was 96. Average on EDP was 21, bringing to 117 for the average daily population. And you can see for the classification and for everything needed, right now we'd be at 164 beds we'd need. Let's see here. Okay, record staff, records division. 2018 was a big year because our manager, Karen Moran, left in the February of 2018, and we hired an excellent replacement. There was a great transition. The county was gracious enough to give me a couple months of transition period so that we could train up our new office manager. We do have 5 full-time civilian employees. This includes 3 full-time law enforcement record specialists, 1 full-time lead record specialist, and 1 full-time administrative service manager. And I'm sure all of you can attest that these gals up front are outstanding in regards to the preparations and for making me look good, because they make sure everything is presentable to you. Got a question?
Sheriff, your transportation of the prisoners, you have $665,000. Now, those are, majority of those are, I assume, are during the day and when you have your transportation people working. Now, what happens at night when you don't have them working and you get a transport and it's a high felony type deal? You probably have to send 2 officers. Is that where you come up to, like maybe 1 or 2 officers for the whole county that are patrolling?
Right. Say we have a what's called a mental commitment, and we need a 2-officer trip because that is by contract in regards to how we do it for safety for the officers. A lot of times those don't happen during the day. Those are usually transported at night to Winnebago, Mendota, throughout the state, and those usually they can take 8 to 10 hours for these getting cleared at the hospital, getting transported. Those would be where we have the minimum staffing in the county. So, and we've had that where major accidents happens and we try to call people in, but it's an hour and a half delay to get people in by that time. Okay. So again, record specialist people and our office manager is top notch, and just look at some of the stats that they do in regards to classes of offenses. They do all the reports and information to the district attorney. They give all open records requests. They fill all those and everything else that you can see under the duties, and a lot that they are not listed on this page that come from me. So, and let's see. The community engagement, I think you all are aware that I'm strong proponent, and everybody that I hire, that's the first thing I ask them is, how do you feel about volunteering your time and helping the community? I think that's very important that our officers, not only just the uniform officers, but the corrections, EM, EMS, and the record specialists are out there. So we give them opportunities, even while they're working, while they're off, do, from anything from Special Olympics to cops and bobbers to whatever is listed here, plus numerous others, to get them out in the community so that they're known by the community and they see them more than just somebody from the sheriff's office, that they're actually human beings and care about the community. Whoa.
Whoa. We almost ducked.
It's a mic drop. Okay, and you can also see we are on online presence. We have a big following in regards to our Facebook pages and our website. People are always asking us questions. I think it's very interactive. It's been very good. A couple bumps in the road. And then we have some recognition on page 55. You can see that through our department and through some policies, we've had some different awards that we've been trying to build up in regards to recognizing our officers. Be honest with you, it's hard because these guys deserve it every day. Just the other week, I know that a couple of county boards came to some life-saving awards that we did that will be in next year's. I think I got 3 or 4 more coming up this year that people have done life-saving awards in regards to. So it's been, it's very rewarding to me to see our officers out there and getting the words from the community on how good they're doing. But you can see Deputy Brad Mathwich on January 27th, he responded to a medical call. He was able to stop the bleeding. It was a very traumatic scene, and he was able to stop the bleeding enough to get the paramedics and the ambulance there and save that individual's life. Also, you can see that our Comtechs, the 2 that had the most experience, this year got the Outstanding Dispatcher of the Year Award, which was Susan Dimka and Michelle Dorhurst, so very proud of them. So just things that our staff get recognized all the time that honestly our managements don't even hear sometimes. They don't want the recognition, so it's very rewarding. With that, I'll open it up for questions. Oh, golly.
Thank you, Sheriff, for your report. You mentioned several times the need to hire more staff in your 911 center. And I realize you did explain that it's a very stressful job and the quarters are pretty cramped. It's hard for people to work in an environment like that. So I do understand that part of it. Is it a situation where we're maybe not offering these people enough money for starting pay, or is it just individuals don't always match up with the job? I mean, would extra pay help? It's obvious that you're having a hard time finding people to fill those positions. I'm wondering if there's something that we can do to help you.
Well, I'm a proponent for always increasing our staff. So to increase our staff, I think that the HR department and the county exec know my feeling in regards to hiring people with experience and coming from other places, that we need to be competitive in regards to vacation, sick leave, and wages. So, I mean, I think we are doing a good job. I think that I know that HR and some of these are looking at our wage study in regards to comparisons for that we're at market. So I will keep pushing that to keep it very competitive.
Thank you, Sheriff Lucas, and thank you again for your report.
Supervisor Robbie.
I don't call.
Sheriff Lucas, thank you for your report. An excellent job, and I appreciate all your hard work. I had 2 questions. One is that I was surprised that you indicated that there are some counties or many counties that don't have the program that we have. I was wondering, do we have any kind of data indicative of the repeat offender rate for our county compared to counties that don't have the program we have?
You know, I talked with our captain of the jail, and we are going to be working on in regards to reoffenders, but I know that our reoffender rate is low in regards to that. So, but I will work with the chief or the captain in regards to that. I don't have that data.
And I didn't expect to have it on hand, but perhaps even data indicating the repeat offender rating for our inmates locally, that we house locally, compared to those that we transport out. That might be interesting information. Second question I had is that I was just wondering if there's any data regarding the daily average cost per inmate utilizing our facility compared to the daily cost per inmate for those that we send out?
Well, I know that when we talk about the daily cost for our institution, it includes staff, electricity. Everything, and I believe that we were up to $97. The finance director has calculated that out for me in regards to our cost per.
Yeah, I don't need it now, but sometimes that information would be helpful just to know what all our costs combined are for the programming, the housing, et cetera, what it is for our facility compared to those that when we send out, the total cost. Thank you, and a nice job too, I appreciate it, thank you.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff, for the report. I did read it. I have lots of sticky notes, so I will not go over all of those. And thanks for bringing up the information about those declaring mental health issues. I think that's an important number to understand because I think we can all agree jail is not the place to treat people with mental health issues.
But the state is recommending that as our mental health facilities now.
Yes. Well, and in the city of Stevens Point, we have an officer dedicated to crisis intervention that's mostly dealing with people with mental health issues. So I think that's a kind of a separate issue that we really need to focus on and put more resources into outside of the correction system. I was looking at the 2004 report that Sheriff Scharwitz had put together, and it followed many of the same things, but I think the thing that I found missing, and I'm hoping that we can bring to another report or maybe when you bring that kind of data, that report had information on the people, their ethnicity or their racial characteristics, so that we could understand, it's one thing to say 789 bookings. Those are humans. What is the makeup of that population?
Sure, I can definitely do that.
The other thing that it also provided, which I found really helpful, which I think we would all find helpful, it broke it down into different categories. So, those people who were on pre-trial holds and bail holds, and in different sort of categories so that we can understand, again, another characteristic of that total population. Then I think the other thing, and this would be new now, the other thing I found in there too is it kind of broke down the population into misdemeanor, felony, and then civil charges and why they were staying. So all of these things were coming together with a lot of different data points. I think they're really helpful. We tend to talk about recently or over the past 25 years numbers, brick and mortar, costs of transportation, these things, but understanding, the people who are there, why they're there, and what that makeup is. The other thing is I'm hoping, and you probably don't have now, but what the important part of this is 17-year-olds. How many 17-year-olds are waived into adult courts and adult jail because of the current law?
Okay, I think those stats would come from the courts, not from me, though.
So I don't know where it's like, I'm kind of tired of, the barriers and the walls between the two parts of the judicial system.
I mean, we do give out a monthly, our daily report in regards to our jail.
Okay.
That goes out to, I think, the county the county boards, and I'm not sure. I know that the race we were putting on, not sure if the crime, but it has a big breakdown. It's a whole spreadsheet every month.
I think that's important because if at some point, there is some movement in Madison to waive 17-year-olds back into the juvenile system, which I think is most appropriate. And so understanding that population now, I think the other thing I would like to see of that 1,789 is how many are in Huber. So that, I think, is another sort of subset of this entire conversation. So I'm kind of more interested in those data points as it relates to the people and not just the bulk number.
See, the issue about the Huber that I'm going to bring up is because somebody can be on, judge can order Huber, but they'll have a probation hold, they'll have separate charges. So it's hard to decipher that inmate saying, oh, this number out of the 1782 is a Huber, because it's really not. It's labeled in our jail as Huber, probation, and fresh charges. So you can have multiple classifications on an inmate coming in. So that's why I'm hesitant on our daily report, it tells you we have 17 Huber, we have 21 home monitoring, we have 65 in for sentencing for, that they were sent. So, I mean, that report, I think, maybe I'll send it to you and you can look at it and see if that satisfies what you're looking for.
Yeah, I just think in here, you've got a lot of good information. Understanding our family, our friends, our neighbors who make up that 1,789 and the whys, I think, are as important as transportation costs and all of these other things. So,
Okay.
thanks for your report.
Supervisor Dodge.
Our justice planner has a lot of that information, and I would ask perhaps that we schedule her for a presentation perhaps next month,
That would be very good.
so that it's very timely to hear the information she can offer.
She's sitting right behind you, I
Sheriff
think.
doesn't
I know she's here, but I have to leave, so I want her to come next month.
I know that we'd be working together on this anyway in regards to getting the
The
data.
information I received is from the jail captain regarding the last 10 years of race and ethnicity that's been, and age and gender the last 10 years. So that's something I had received from him. So it would just be reporting on it.
Okay. So that was something I requested. When did I request that? Probably 6 months ago to start on that, Andrea?
Oh, no, I just got it. I asked and I got it within a week.
Okay.
Or- yeah.
It took a while to get the program such.
Yeah, there was something that had to be done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Blending those things are just a really, really important thing, and it starts to erase those silos and creates a more cohesive system.
That's why I think it was supervisor over there that asked me to do that, and so it just took a while to get the program set.
Sure.
So.
Thank you.
And the one comment, you had mentioned something about the bond holds and the other things, and we're just getting ready to start something, a committee to look at that, and I believe yourself and Ms. Supervisor Dodge are going to be on that committee to start working on that in the future here, so.
Looking forward to it.
So, Supervisor Mua.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff, for this report. This is really good. Couple things. First, your officers are doing a great job connecting with folks in the community. I was actually stopped while I was trick-or-treating with my kids, and I was freaking out, but I was just given a bag of candy. And they were out with the canines. So. One question, and it just was surprising for me to see this data about the number of papers served, like that seemed to have dropped a lot. And I know I've always kind of said our sheriff department was great, especially when I had to work with victims on getting papers served. So, I don't know why there was such a huge number drop from like 621 to 99.
Well, I will address that real quick. Number one, the fees went up, and local providers came in, private organizations came in at $35 and we were charging $75. So it made financial sense to most people to go to the private. We usually get from the district attorney's office and Health and Human Service, and things like that for the county ones, but we don't get a lot of private ones anymore.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. And my last question is, I'd like to see some data around how many interactions the Sheriff Department actually has with ICE. I have heard some rumors around the community about ICE presence within Dane County. I mean, not Dane County, I'm in Dane County too much. Within Portage County, and even ICE presence at our county jail. So I'd like some data around that, or any insight that you have. Also, I just want to put out, especially this past weekend with a lot of the ICE raids in some of the major communities around us, two actually that we know of in Minneapolis that was pretty violent. So, I kind of just want to see where our Sheriff's Department stands on participating or cooperating with ICE.
I don't get notified if ICE is coming in. We had one occurrence last year that ICE was notified in regards to fresh arrest, but that's the only time I knew, and I've never been contacted by ICE. I know that Sheriff Mahoney down in Madison has put a request into the federal government that the local sheriff's office gets notified. just because we are the keepers of the jails, and he requested that, and that went mute. So I imagine there will be no notification to us until after it is complete. So that's all I can tell you on that.
Okay, but where does I guess, I don't know, but.
Assist on the raids? No.
No, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had a plan or a process just to make sure that all residents in Portage County, regardless if they're documented, undocumented, a citizen, or like myself for many years, alien resident, were protected in the same equal way.
I've done numerous talks throughout the community, especially in the southern part where I live, in regards to the at farms, at the Latino community, trying to quash these fears that we've got an ICE group up here. I don't have manpower for patrol. And I'm not joking. So in regards to assisting a federal agency coming in, we don't have the capabilities for that.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Bob Gifford.
Yeah, Sheriff, this is a good, long, comprehensive report. One thing that really jumped out off the page at me was the enormous amount increase in methamphetamine. Now, unlike THC, I look at methamphetamine as basically it's a chemical weapon, in my opinion. It ruins the person's nervous system, and it's a public health crisis that we have that much, and that's just what's been apprehended, right?
Correct.
And I know in Jeannie Dodge's monthly reports on Child Protective Services, an awful lot of them mention methamphetamine as a, compounding factor in families going, kaput. So does your department have are you getting any clues why there's this industrial scale increase in the amount of that getting into the community? Because like I say, I think it's a public health crisis as much also as a law enforcement crisis.
Yeah, we definitely know we have 2 supply areas, and it's easy to make. We have from Minneapolis and from Milwaukee, and it's a supply chain that's easily accessible. The cost to make this and the actual chemical compounds is right online how to make it. It's very toxic, it's very deadly, and it's very costly for cleanups for the labs that we do get for the clandestine labs. So, I mean, when you're looking at heroin compared to methamphetamines, heroin came from the southern border, and that was cut off in regards to a lot of areas. So now they're looking for a cheaper alternative, which is methamphetamines, and the federal government or the state has changed in regards to buying certain types of products in bulk. But that still they can just buy something else in regards to it. So a lot of these chemical compounds are readily accessible. And as you said, these labs are popping up all over, especially in the county forests. They just put them in plastic bottles, and they let it brew, and they come back and get their product. And if a kid or somebody walks by and picks that up, or it mixes, it could blow up instantly. So we had some down in Adams County and some in others that it caused some serious fires and items like that. And so we have great concern in regards to methamphetamine. Plus, it deteriorates somebody's body very rapidly.
Yeah.
Supervisor Jim Gifford.
Well, I have to leave before the thing tonight because I've got to go down and do another session at the federal grand jury, but we see a lot of meth cases down there, many of which start with local law enforcement, and so we end up with local law enforcement officers testifying, and they range the gamut of barely competent to excellent. And I will have to say, we've had 3 or 4 so far from Portage County drug officers, and they've just been top rate. They're better than almost anybody else we see.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Anybody else? Supervisor Splinter.
I read the report, excellent report, and I also saw the increase by 3 to 1, the meth problem. are the arrests you're making associated with meth, are they primarily the suppliers and the manufacturers of those products, or are they users? And what affects the whole county is you have the supplier on one end, but you also have the users, and somehow they have to come up with the money to buy the meth. So are the users also involved in thefts and other things, burglary and everything else to come up with that money, or is it so cheap that it's not a factor as far as getting the money to buy the drugs?
Well, when somebody is hooked on any kind of drugs, they have no money, so they are looking for their next fix. And I do Crime Stoppers every 2 weeks, and the majority of my Crime Stoppers are drug-related in regards to the crimes that are occurring. So from the burglaries to the break-ins to the car break-ins and things like that, people are looking for the quick dollar so that they can get their next fix. So yeah, I mean, it's a snowball effect in regards to the society, how the drug situation is.
Anybody else? Supervisor Loddick.
Just one question on classification of offenses. I noticed that the drug narcotic violations actually went 28% down from 2017, which is, in light of what we've been seeing on the streets, I'm surprised at that.
What page are you on?
49. Drug equipment violations and drug narcotic violations are both down 28%.
Okay, now that would be the case why our sheriff's office reporting might be different, because we work in the Central Wisconsin Task Force, where we would ship it down federally, or we would ship it to, say we're working with the Stevens Point Police Department or Plover Police Department drug officers, they would charge it out in their department. And so we've had a lot of cases like that, and so it flips back and forth in regards to the years. But our cases in regarding to, drugs have increased for our investigation-wise.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Supervisor Martinson.
I'll try to be quick. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sheriff Lucas. I'd like to return to the communication center, if we can, quickly. And I'm just curious, as we think about new spaces, I'm just curious as to, have there been any incidents that you can attribute to either the lower numbers of employment, needing more communication officers, or directly to the space that they are in, any negative effects that can be attributed to that, or anything that you foresee in the future? I know I've talked to Denise Nash a little bit about it in the past, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I would say over $100,000 in overtime in the facility is a concern. So that's my number one thing is, I mean, mandatory overtime, bringing in, we're using anybody that wants and can be certified in the jail that works in the sheriff's office, from our record specialists to corrections to deputies. So we can't fill with the 16 that we have, that we're going outside. So it's putting a burden on our full-time trained dispatch, bringing people in that might not be able to page out ambulances or things like that, so they have to look to the trained person, and they can be the call taker, but they're not able to go on the CAD or do some entries. So we're filling a seat to answer the calls, but we're not filling the seats for the dispatch role itself.
I would think if the burnout rate is fairly high in that position anyway, and then accelerating it from a normal 40-hour work week to mandatory overtime, you're going to accelerate that as well.
I think Denise Nash has said that the number of people, the percentage of the general population that can do that job is, maybe if you can refresh my memory, but it's under 5%, 4% maybe. And so the pool, I know, but I guess the point is the pool of people who can effectively do that job over a period of 13 years for our average is limited. And so doing what we can to support them, I think, is an important point, which is why I asked the question.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, it takes a certain type of person to be in any calling of law enforcement or any of the sheriff's office fields. I also feel that, be in the right circumstance, the right facility, given the right opportunity, I think we can make, the higher success rate. So, I mean, I don't disagree that it's a very tough profession, especially with how Portage County is in regards to the call and dispatch. But I think we're striving to do a lot better than national average.
Anybody else? I just have one other comment to Supervisor Robbie's question about the recidivism between Wapaka and here. Are those people in Wapaka, because of the transport of a different crimes, or I guess I'm looking for words. I'm wondering if that would skew the numbers a little bit, because we don't want to be moving them back and forth as often. The ones that go there, are they more of a severe crime? Are the ones that going to Wapaka?
And I guess that is correct, because our inmates that are transported over there are usually sentenced. So the ones that are here, we try to keep as many as pretrial inmates here, so we don't have to do as many back and forth transports. So we might have a little bit of an issue in regards to that, and I guess we could take a look and see.
I was just thinking about the data, though.
I believe that data probably would be skewed, but that's why I'd be interested in knowing like the county's comparable size, comparable populations in the state.
Well, and I did do the comparison, like the Wood County, identical population, and they're at like 250 inmates. They're shipping out 100, and they have a 179-bed jail, and they're full. So, I mean, I look at the programs that we've been doing, the success rate of our, daily population of 117, that's including the home monitoring, compared to 250, our next door neighbor, which is demographics the same, I feel.
Right, and that'd probably be a good one. So my question would be, their percentage of repeat offenders compared to our percentage of repeat offenders that have gone through a program. I would hope that ours would be significantly less because of the programming. That's one of the reasons why we have programming to the system, so that they don't have the need to continue with behaviors that got them in trouble in the first place. So that's the data that I'd be interested in.
Definitely look into it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. With that, thank you, Sheriff. Ray, you're up next month. That's how you do a report.
Help him back. Wow.
That's that, Mike.
Next item, claims. Discussion possible action on recommending disallowance of collision damage claims submitted by American Zurich Insurance Company. I said disallowance.
Yeah, to deny.
I'm looking for a motion to deny. Motion by Supervisor Droik, seconded by Supervisor James Gifford. Any discussion? Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if Attorney Ray could explain the process again for us, so we're all understand everything.
I can. Hopefully, I'll be able to offer some comments that apply to all three of the claims that are on the agenda tonight, so that we've all got a procedural understanding about how this works. First of all, I can say as to all three of the claims, our insurance company has been notified. We always notify our insurance company as soon as the county receives the claim, typically in the county clerk's office. When the county clerk receives the claim, she forwards it to my office. We forward it to the county's risk manager in the finance department. And then between the risk manager and myself, we make sure that we forward it to our insurance company so that our insurance company knows right away that a claim has been filed. The second thing to understand is that no lawsuits have been filed yet. Under the statute that applies to everybody who makes a claim against a municipality, the filing of the claim is the first required step in the process. People cannot file lawsuits against municipalities until they submit the written claim asking for damages. Another part of that process under the statute is for this body to disallow, or what's also called deny, the claim. Typically, almost all claims are denied and disallowed. That doesn't mean that our insurance company won't eventually end up paying something to settle the claim, for example, or if a lawsuit gets filed, doesn't necessarily mean that the case is ultimately going to go to trial. It might often, probably 8 or 9 out of 10 cases, settle rather than go to trial. And the other thing that I can share that applies to all three of these is that because the claim is very early on in the whole process of presenting a request for compensation, we're still in the process, and our insurance company is still in the process of investigating these things. And because they're not even lawsuits, and once lawsuits are filed, we don't talk openly about the details of those because we don't want to reveal strategy that we might use in trying to defend the lawsuit. The same holds true with these claims. We can talk generally about what they are. The first two involve a motor vehicle accident involving a county vehicle. Happened to be a snowplow, and then a second vehicle was involved. The other one is a claim involving an incident that occurred in our juvenile detention center. But beyond that, we can't talk about details of those, and we don't really need to for purposes of deciding whether or not to disallow the claim. What I can assure you is that once we report these to our insurance company comes back and talks with us, typically myself, our risk manager, and any other county staff who ought to be involved in that discussion about whether or not to disallow or deny the claim. On all three of these, I can tell you that our insurance company is on board and on the same page with us that we recommend denial of all of them. So hopefully those comments are helpful.
To answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second to disallow, pardon?
All three of them.
The collision damage claim. And we'll just take a voice vote if there's no objections. All those in favor of denying, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion possible action on recommending disallowance of workers' comp reimbursement claims submitted by American Zurich Insurance Company. I'll take a motion to deny. Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Don Jankowski. Any other discussion? All those in favor of denying, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion possible action on recommending disallowance of claim involving Portage County Juvenile Detention Center submitted by Lawton and Cates SC. Take a motion to deny by Supervisor Pataki, seconded by Supervisor O'Brien. All those in favor, Supervisor Zastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I'm just curious on this, of how this, or why this needs to be relayed to our insurance company, other than at some point a settlement might be made.
Whenever you have a claim that's presented to you, if you delay or don't notify your insurance carrier, you run the risk of the carrier later on coming back and saying, we're not going to cover you because we weren't notified at the outset. We notify them because we want to give them the opportunity right alongside with us to investigate the facts of the claim so that they get all of the information while it's fresh shortly after the occurrence happened, so that we can document our file so that we're very ready if and when an actual lawsuit is filed. On this particular one, I can also tell you that our insurance company thought it was important enough after we reported the claim to them that the insurance company's already assigned an outside lawyer to defend us if and when that day comes when a lawsuit gets filed. And that lawyer has already been here and met with me and met with the Sheriff's Department folks. So we're doing that investigation to see what went on behind the claim, again, so that we're ready if and when we need to be.
Thank you.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Thank you, Corp Counsel Ray, for your explanation. But as you were explaining how the process goes, if this body would not deny a claim, does that say that does that mean that this body thinks it's a justifiable claim?
No, not at all. And again, because we haven't discussed details and we don't need to at this point, the disallowing and denying the claim does one primary thing under the statute. It speeds up the timeline for the claimant to file the lawsuit. They are required, if we disallow the claim, they're required to file their lawsuit within 6 months of the denial. So it shortens up the statute of limitations. If the county board decides not to disallow the claim, or if we just don't even respond to it at all, they can still file their lawsuit. It's just that their timeline is the regular statute of limitations that applies to that kind of a claim. Usually, like for a personal injury claim, for example, from an auto accident, that's 3 years from the date of the accident. But we get most of these claims fairly shortly after. I mean, on the auto accident here, it was, I think, back in February of this year, of 2019. So they filed the claim right away. We're disallowing it. We're causing them to make a decision to move forward or not.
Thank you, Counsel Ray.
Anybody else? All right, then we have a motion and a second to deny. All in, Supervisor Gussel. You have a question?
No.
Oh, you had your hand up.
I thought you were asking for a motion.
Oh, I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of denying the claims, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Confirmation of county executive appointments. If there's no objections, I'll take both of them in a voice vote. I need a motion to approve. Motion by Matt Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Pataki. Any other discussion? All in favor, take a voice on that? All in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Appointments approved. Approval of Executive Operation Committee appointments. I'll take a motion. Motion by Supervisor Larry Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Zdroik. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Resolutions. Number one, authorizing the 2019 amended contracts over $100,000.
1 second.
1 second.
Resolution 137, 2018-2020, submitted by Judicial General Government Committee, amending the 2019 contract between Portage County Justice Programs Department and Justice Point, Inc.
Motion by Supervisor Matt Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Medine. Discussion. All those in favor, push yes and no, and confirm.
That did. Pressed it hard.
Yeah. 24 ayes, 1 excused. Resolution adopted.
Authorization for a change to the, oh boy.
Psychiatrist.
The psychiatrist vacation schedule and exemption of human resource policy 3.11.9.5 vacation.
Resolution 138, 2018-2020, submitted by Human Resources Committee, changing the psychiatrist vacation schedule.
Motion by Supervisors Zastro, seconded by Supervisor Bob Gifford. Discussion. All those in favor, push yes, and opposed, no.
hand just left.
23 ayes, 2 excused, resolution adopted.
Number 3, authorization to the amendment of the budget for the purpose of funding the replacement of Central Wisconsin Windshed Partnership, CWWP Group ATV and Tiller.
Resolution 139, 2018, 2020, submitted by Land and Water Conservation, Planning and Zoning, and Finance Committees, authorizing funding for the stated equipment. This resolution requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Laddick. Discussion. All those in favor? Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Sorry, I was a little slow on the trigger. I just always like to remind the body that the Central Wisconsin Windshed Partnership is a conglomeration between several counties here, and it is a self-supporting organization that no tax levy goes to pay for.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, push yes, and oppose no.
Yeah. Get them when you find them.
23 ayes, 2 excused, resolution adopted.
Number 4, budget adjustment for Land and Water Conservation Division Soil and Water Resource Management Cost Sharing Grant 2018, extending funds.
Resolution 140, 2018-2020, submitted by Land and Water Conservation, Planning and Zoning, and Finance Committee. Budget adjustment resolution authorizes extending funds from 2018 to 2019 budget and requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
Motion by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. All those in favor with yes and opposed no.
You're doing good.
23 ayes, 2 excused, resolution adopted.
Number 5, approving and authorizing Portage County Solid Waste to execute the agreement with Michelson and Sons Trucking to operate the Portage County Transfer Facility and transport solid waste to a licensed landfill for years 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024.
Resolution 141, 2018-2020, submitted by Solid Waste Management Board, authorizing the 5-year agreement with Michelson and Sons Trucking.
Motion by Supervisor Moresi, seconded by Supervisor Zastro. Discussion. All those in favor? Supervisor Johnson. I almost didn't see you have your hand up.
I was slow.
Yeah.
Checking to see if you were awake. As usual, anything to do with the Solid Waste Department, I will be abstaining from the vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, press yes, and oppose no.
And? Or maybe not.
Fine, Charlie.
22 ayes, 1 abstained, 2 excused, resolution adopted.
Okay, we're still in committee, but we have a few that are going to have to leave or they're excused. The rest of you, we're going to take just a quick break here, a few minutes to get set up for the active shooter training. We're going to, we've had some things happening throughout the country, and we thought it would be a good idea to have a little class on active shooter, both with our facilities here and whether you're out in your church or anywhere in the community, grocery stores, you can have anything happen at the wrong time. So I think some of these things will cover those topics. So we thought it was important enough that everybody get a chance to hear it. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Eric. Introduce yourself.
The kids call me Deputy Eric at the school, so that's fine. But Deputy Eric Capesel. I'm the Community Resource Officer at the Sheriff's Office, just like the Sheriff mentioned. So what that job entails is, like some of you know, I'm part of the Citizens Academy, organizing that and taking that on, but also going to businesses and talking to them about different safety problems, safety concerns that they may have. One of the big ones, obviously throughout our nation, is active shooter situations. The incidences are on the rise. Every day you turn on the news, it seems like there is a new active shooter incident that happened somewhere. in our nation. So that's why it's a huge concern, especially for us. Not too long ago, we had an active shooter situation not too far from us here in Marathon County, where individuals were killed. So, it can happen anywhere. It can happen, at a concert. It can happen at church. It can happen at the grocery store. So what today's training is, it's not a training for county board members in county board in the courtroom here. It's not for your committees when you're in a committee, just. It is for when you're grocery shopping, when you're out to eat, when you're in a music concert, down in the square, whatever it may be. This is some training to give you an idea of what you can do. All right? This is not telling you, exactly, yeah, you have to do this in this situation. Obviously, that depends upon you, okay? What your abilities are to do these types of things. So a little bit about myself. I want to try to keep this short, so I don't want to go too long. I've kind of shortened up a little bit of this presentation, but a lot of this presentation has to do with what I take to businesses. And I teach businesses. What I go take to the schools. I cover nine schools throughout Portage County in training programs, doing counteract programs with them, helping out with investigations at the schools. And I also talk about active shooter procedures. And I'll go over what ALICE is, what our schools are being taught in this presentation. But first of all, what is an active shooter? Obviously, the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, defines an active shooter as someone actively engaged in killing, okay? Mass casualty incident. Over the years, why are we having this training? Why are we preparing ourselves? It's because you can look at the statistics. Over the years, April 20th, 1999, Columbine High School. Okay? You can see. How well prepared were we as law enforcement? How well prepared were we as citizens? As you can see, incidences are on the rise. Rothschild, Weston shooting. Okay, an active shooter situation. We're going to talk about what law enforcement does, but this is more of what can you do as an ordinary citizen. Because it's shown for 25 years of mass shooting statistics, it shows us how long it takes for a law enforcement officer to arrive on scene. How long do you guys think it takes for a law enforcement officer or law enforcement officers to arrive on scene of an active shooter incident? On average, nationwide average, what do you think?
15 to 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes? Okay. Maybe if we're in Amherst, Ullman, right? Rochelle, the national average is 5 to 6 minutes.
Wow.
Ask yourself, what can happen in that amount of time? How many people can die in 5 to 6 minutes? With a person with an AK-47, with an automatic, semi-automatic rifle, a pistol, handgun, whatever it may be. Even a knife. Because we have active killing situations using knives. How many people can die with that? Right? And what were we ever told? What were we ever trained in these types of things? We prepare ourselves in school, right? And when we go to school, there's fire drills. Or at our place of employment, we have fire drills. At school, it's required every month to have a fire drill. And tornado drills, right? We do tornado drills. We practice these things. But what about if we have a violent intruder? What if we have an active shooter? Were we training this in 1999 at Columbine High School? No. It was farthest from anybody's mind that this was going to happen. We have to change the times. We have to change our philosophy of thinking. What can we do? So basically, I want you to think through this presentation, ask yourself, what if? What am I going to do if this were to happen? Because I can't give you a scenario that's going to happen. But you might have a scenario that is going to be very similar to that. And you're going to now know, oh, I can know how to respond somewhat to that. We have 3 natural responses as human beings. Right? We have the fight, the flight, or the freeze. And we've seen these in active shooter situations that we've seen maybe on the news, right? We've seen people running. We've seen people fighting back now. We've seen people freezing, locking down. They're just under a table, not doing anything. It was at Columbine High School because that's what they were trained to do. Stay down, stay under the table, stay quiet. Don't do anything, just stay under the table. That's what they were told. That's what they were trained. Right? So a little bit of a history lesson from Columbine. What did we learn? Theirs was to lock down. That was the plan. Lock down. Right? When you listen to a lot of the different audio clips from Columbine High School, 911 phone calls, you watch some of the videos, which are still out there, you see kids laying down. People instructing them to lay down, get under the tables, get under the desks, and be quiet. Okay? Not doing anything, just be quiet. And police, what were we trained to do? Set up a perimeter and wait for SWAT, right? That's not what we're trained to do anymore. And I'll talk a little bit more of what we're doing, especially here in Portage County, to kind of combat that. We're actually taking paramedics in with us now. We're actually doing rescue task force training. As you can see, this is a photograph of a layout of Columbine High School. This is the library section of that building where a lot of the casualties happen. Okay? As you can notice, you see the lines showing, this is the route, this is the main doors to the library, right? You can kind of see that right here is where the main library doors are. Do you see any other exits in this library area? Do you see any other exits here?
Windows.
Door there. But what is all around here? Windows. Are those exits? Are these exits? If there's an active shooter in this building, is that an exit?
Yeah. Potentially.
Yeah, potentially, right? I can break this window, I can get out this way. Has anybody ever thought that? What would happen if an active shooter would come into this building? First of all, who's the target? Who's the number one target probably?
You, because you have the gun.
Me, probably, right? Because I am their threat. So people think, oh, law enforcement's here, we're safe. It may not be. It may be that you're a target first. And if I'm disabled, I'm undercover, I can't help anybody. What can you do to increase your survivability? Okay? Think about those exits. There's an exit. There's an emergency exit right out here. There's also an emergency exit if you go down this hallway, down past the DA's office. There's an emergency exit there. What's the one exit we always use? An entrance. Right there, right? That's what we have to use. But are we aware of the other exits? When we go to Walmart grocery shopping, are we aware of the other exits in Walmart? Out the back tire department. Out the back through the warehouse stores. We normally don't go back there, but is that an exit? Is it a way to get away from the shooter? Yeah, right? Now, if we can, we want to evacuate. If we can. So we want to get out to the exits. And we'll talk about what we're teaching for our regular citizens here in Portage County, our businesses here in Portage County, and then also what we're teaching our students and our staff at schools here as well. So this is the picture of the Columbine. But the kids all use this one exit, one entrance, an exit. They had the opportunity. They had 6 minutes before the shooters, before they heard the shots, which some teachers thought were actors or a play, kids putting a play on or a movie production, until they realized there's people dying, and they thought, okay. But they had like 6 minutes to exit the library before the shooters entered the library. They entered, and they found kids hiding under tables, hiding behind desks, and they came up and they shot them. Tragic. As this picture portrays, this is an actual photo, but it portrays. That's what they were trained. Get under a table, get under, hide. Don't do anything, get under, hide. Fast forward, approximately almost 8 years, April 16, 2007. Virginia Tech. Okay? This was a little bit different. We learned some more things about active shooter situations. Okay? 32 people were killed. This is actually the third deadliest U.S. Shooting by one person. Okay. That was surpassed with the Las Vegas shooting. But you can look. This is one of the classroom buildings, Virginia Tech, and we're going to see what doing something, being progressive, being proactive, what that can do and how that can save our lives. Okay. So if you look in room 206, everybody stay down, like they were instructed to do. Okay. I'm going to remind you, doors were not lockable at Virginia Tech at this time. So they closed the doors, they weren't lockable. Okay. 14 were present, 10 individuals were killed, 2 were wounded. They hid under the tables, remained quiet, stayed down. Same thing in room 211. 19 were present, 12 were killed, 6 were wounded. Now we're going to move a little bit different to room 204. 204 was a little bit different. The professor in 204 was actually a Holocaust survivor. So he kind of had that fight or flight response built into him, And he realized, saw this was a shooter, used himself and another student to barricade the door shut so that the shooter was not able to get into the door, to get into the room. Those are the 2 individuals that were killed. This was a second floor classroom. The rest of the students jumped out the window as an exit, as instructed by the professor to do. 3 of them received broken bones, things like that. That is where the 3 wounded come from. So we can see, doing something proactively caused this with 2 deaths. Room 207, they barricaded after the first time. So the shooter came in, shot, left, they barricaded. 13 were present, 5 were killed, 6 were wounded. In room 205, 12 people were present. They pushed desks and everything they had in front of that door so no one could get in. And we'll talk about some barricading techniques in a little bit. As you can see, 12 were present, 0 were killed, 0 were wounded by doing something. Okay? So, what does that show us? By doing nothing, by giving up, not wanting to live, not wanting just freezing, getting under a desk, not wanting to do anything, we had 28 fatalities. The individuals that did something proactive, a proactive response, we had 2 fatalities from that. Barricade themselves. So looking at this, you can see that if we have an active shooter situation, and we have people that are proactive, people that are doing things, are there still going to be death? Is there still going to be killing? Yes. But can we limit that in numbers? Can we limit the amount of people that are killed or injured? Right? By doing something, being proactive. Remember that 5 to 6 minute window right before law enforcement gets there? What can we do? So what are we doing here in Portage County? What has changed? What have we been doing? In our schools, we're trained using the ALICE procedures. And this year, actually, the Stevens Point School District is actually incorporating the standard response protocol as well, as part from the I Love You Guys Foundation, a free protocol that they can use. FBI and Homeland Security has come out with Run, Hide, Fight, and that's kind of what we're going to go over today. I'm going to talk about ALICE, what ALICE is, and you're going to see that there's a very close similarity to Run, Hide, Fight. Okay? ALICE is kind of a pay thing. You pay for the program, and it's an excellent program for schools because it does have the capability of how do we train, how do we teach kindergartners and first graders and these elementary kids on active shooter. They have a great way to do that. We talk about the bad guy, talk about the bad wolf, those types of things. We don't talk about active shooter killing, that type of thing, but we're training them at that young age to be aware. What is happening around you? Let's look around, make sure we're aware. Okay? So what is ALICE? ALICE stands for, A stands for alert, that initial awareness. Okay? Being aware of your surroundings. What is happening around you? Is there someone walking on the street today with a trench coat, a black trench coat on? Is that kind of unusual when it's 85 degrees outside and humid? With a person wearing a black trench coat walking on the street? Is that kind of unusual? Heavy coat? Maybe bulky coat, something under that coat? It's kind of unusual habit, okay? Being alert, what is happening around us? Or we're at a business and we notice that our coworker is acting unusual. He asks us to sign his will. What is that all about? This is from an actual active shooter incident. A guy came to work and asked his coworker to sign his will. Kind of a red flag, right? Lockdown. L stands for lockdown. Secure your doors, barricade, spread out, okay? Doing something, protecting yourself. I is inform. It's passing that information on to law enforcement, right? To the students. Passing, what does the active shooter look like? What is he wearing? Who is it, maybe? So if the active shooter is in the east side of the building and I'm on the west side of the building, I'm going to exit out the west side of the building and get away from the active shooter. Okay, so I know that information. C is the counter. Okay, use some type of improvised weapon against them. What kind of weapons do we have? What kind of weapons do we have in this room besides my firearm on my side?
Books. Water bottle, chair.
Water bottle, chair, right? How many people have thought about hornet spray? Hornet spray can spray up to 20 feet. Spray that in somebody's eye.
They don't let us bring that.
Right?
They don't let us bring that in here.
They don't let you bring that. Yep, we don't let you bring that. So, yep.
Confiscated.
I heard, and I can't remember where, but they were talking about the marksmanship of a soldier or a police officer in a controlled marksman situation at a range drastically goes down when you go into an active firefight.
Yep.
And for an untrained civilian, it's even worse. So you got about 8 chances out of 10 of overpowering that person, and they're not going to be able to shoot at you if they have books and everything else coming out. They have
it's coming up here, actually.
Versus just people sitting underneath the chair where they have total control.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
pushback, they said it was whatever you can push back with, push back.
Yep.
'Cause you're gonna increase your chance of survival.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll have a slide on that here in a little bit, and I'll kind of explain that as well. So E, evacuate, right? Probably our most preferred response. If you can get out, get out. If you can get away from that active shooter, get out. Remember, this and run, hide, fight is not a linear approach. So I don't go down the list. I remember Alice, I remember run, hide, fight, okay? It's not go, okay, I have to alert, now I have to lock down, and then I have to counter the person, then I have to evacuate. No. It is whatever you decide in that situation. Like I said, if the active shooter or active killer is on the east side of the building and you're on the west, obviously you're going to evacuate. But if you're in the same room as an active killer, you're probably going to counter. If the active shooter is outside this room, you're probably going to barricade. You're going to lock down, okay? You have to decide which situation is proper for you in that scenario. I can't tell you what's going to happen, okay? I was on patrol for 9 years, okay? Patrol officers, what do? You're driving around, it may be 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And there's not a lot of people on the streets, there's not a lot of going on. What do law enforcement officers do? No, we don't take naps and eat donuts or stop at Quick Trip and eat donuts and coffee. Maybe sometimes, but what do? We're thinking about scenarios in our head. The what if situations. What if there's a break-in at this building? What am I going to do? Okay? Go through your head. Running scenarios through your head. What if I pull over somebody and they have a gun? And I approach the car and they have a gun. What am I going to do? We have training for this as well, but we're also running these scenarios through our head. What if this person were to do this? How would I react? Why do we do that? It's just a fun game? No. It's training us. Because if a situation similar to that would arise, I'm more prepared. I know faster, I can make quicker decisions of what I have to do. So that's what I need you to do. As citizens, county board members, I need you to be more prepared to run these what-if situations. It's a sad part of our society, but it's what our society has come to. Where we have to start thinking, what can I do? What can I do as an ordinary citizen to help myself, right? We have one deputy per 270 square miles, is that right? It's a lot of area for one deputy to cover. What can you guys do? So, we're going to talk a little bit about run, hide, fight. I don't want to keep you too long, so we're going to really go through this. It kind of is self-explanatory, and we have a little bit short video kind of from FBI to show what we're really talking about. And it's also, if you want to take this back to a business, say you have a business that has concerns about this, you hear from somebody, whatever it may be, wants to train their employees, there are great resources out there. Through the FBI, through Homeland Security, in Portage County, they can contact me, and I'd be more than happy to come help them develop some type of safety plan. First of all, run. Obviously, explains itself, right? Run away. But have that escape route in mind. Where am I going to run to? Am I going to go out that window? Am I going to run out the exits? Do I know what exits I have? Okay? How many of you, I know some of you might have been through this presentation before, but how many of you have a certain place in a restaurant that you have to sit? You go into a restaurant, it doesn't matter what restaurant, or an area you have to sit. How many of you have a certain area you like to sit? Anybody? Okay, you do. Where is that?
With my back to the wall, looking at the front.
Back to the wall, looking to the front, right? If you had a whole room full, a restaurant full of cops, they would all be packed in the corner. Okay? They'd all be packed in that corner because that's what we are used to, right? We're protecting our back. We want to know what's behind us. We want to know our exits. We want to see what's coming in. We want to be prepared. Okay? That's what we need to start doing. We need to prepare ourselves. Okay? If we're shopping at Walmart and we're walking down an aisle and we hear something in the next aisle, what is going on? Is there a domestic disturbance going on? Is there a weapon involved? Okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to react? In the run, make sure that you're following instructions of any police officer. And we'll kind of tell you when law enforcement arrives what to do. Help others to escape if possible. Okay? Remember, you're trying to increase your survivability. There are others you may have to help if you can, if they're willing to go. If they're not willing to go, go. It's your survivability. Leave your belongings behind. Okay? We're not carrying our books. We're not carrying all of our briefcases and everything with us. If you got your phone handy, grab your phone and go. If you don't, if your phone isn't handy, leave it and go. Get out. When you're out, you're calling 911. When you barricade yourself, this is the information that our dispatch center does need. They will prompt you, they may ask you. But they're going to ask you, where's the location of the active shooter? So remember this. Do I know where that active shooter is? How many shooters, if I know, if there's more than one, okay? Statistically, an active shooter situation, statistically, there's only one, generally, but that's statistics, right? There has been more than two. Columbine, right? Physical description of the shooter. This doesn't mean you have to go out and look. I wonder what he's wearing. If you don't know what he's wearing, stay in the room. Okay? Number and type of weapons held by the shooter, if you know, that's information that you need. Potential victims, maybe in your room, that you know, or that you see. Notify that, give that information up. Okay? Second part of that, run, hide, fight. Hide. Okay? If you cannot evacuate, this is something you have to do is hide. Be out of the shooter's way. How many of you know the difference between cover and concealment? What's cover?
Blanket.
Anybody know what cover is?
Under the desk.
Something that'll actually help protect you from gunfire.
There you go. Stop a bullet, right? Concealment is a thin drywall wall or camouflage that's concealing you, right? You're in a leaf pile or something like that. That's concealment, okay? Cover is something that's going to actually stop a bullet, okay? So you want to make sure that you're hiding, you have cover. You have something that's going to stop this shooting. These are types of improvised tools that you can do. How many individuals are wearing belts tonight? Okay. Take a belt off. See the door handle up on top there? Not the handle, but the door mechanism for closing it. If you wrap your belt loop around it, will it prevent the door from opening? Yep. Yeah. Be aware of that. If I have an extension cord, can I use the extension cord wrapped around the doorknob and pull it, go around the side of the wall and pull it shut? Will that keep the door shut if the door doesn't lock? Yep. And it keeps me away from the door. Right? All different types of things. Silence your cell phone. Okay? My cell phone is on silent all the time. I work up in the courthouse once in a while, so I don't want to walk in the courtroom. My work phone goes off, so I keep my phone on silent anyway. But even my personal phone, I keep that on silent. Okay? Source of noise, radio, television. You want to make sure that you can hear, but you don't want them to hear something that you're saying or that it sounds like there's people in a room. Okay? These are some of the photos taken of barricading techniques, right? Do whatever you can. Pile whatever you can in front of a door. Remember, this is your survivability. You are fighting for your life. Do I just want to hide under a table for my life? No. I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to use belts, extension cords, whatever I can, tables, chairs, to protect myself. The next, as a last resort, is the fight. Okay? Like I said, improvised weapons, whatever it may be. If you have a bunch of individuals, you may want to swarm them, right? Get a group of them. Be committed. Make sure that everybody is committed. We are going to do this. When this person comes in the room, we are going to attack them. We are going to do what we can to protect ourselves. On the bottom, it says removing and securing the weapon. Very good point. Okay? Some of you may be concealed carry holders, right? Okay? Or you remove the weapon from the person. If I have got the weapon from the shooter, and I know law enforcement is on their way, and all they have is a report of an active shooter, and they enter this room, and I have the gun, and I'm going like this to a person laying on the ground who's actually the active shooter, what is that law enforcement officer probably going to do? They're going to eliminate the threat that they perceive. Me holding the gun on this person, okay? So if you can, secure that person down on the ground, secure the weapon, put a garbage can over it. Whatever you can, get it out of the area, okay? If you're a concealed carry permit holder, remember that. If you're just holding a gun and law enforcement is coming to an active shooter situation, remember, they're looking for a person with a gun, okay? So this was where we're going to talk, you talked about how law enforcement, how police, military, those types of things, we're trained. We have 4 times a year we have to qualify with our firearms, right? And I'm a pretty decent shot at the range. But in a dynamic situation, I don't know.
We have a rebuttal.
Got to go to the range.
Challenge.
Challenge, yeah, exactly. So, but in a dynamic situation, in a situation where we are encountering an active shooter, or somebody shooting back at us, a dynamic situation, we miss 70, 80% of the time, even though we're training all the time. Because we're getting shot at. Something's happening to us. We're getting this back at us. Bad guy, the active shooter, generally not someone that's specially trained. Maybe ex-military, maybe ex-police, we don't know, right? But generally, not that high-skilled shooter. But what have we seen? We've seen statistics showing numerous people dying from these individuals because there's nothing happening to that person. There's nothing happening to that active shooter. They're going by, Columbine, hit under a table, boom, boom, boom. There's nothing coming at them. They don't have to worry about anything, right? A guy sitting on the what-knows floor of a hotel shooting into a crowd of people, right? He's not getting shot at. Nothing happening. He's just shooting, okay? So, what can we do? We can cause noise, movement, distractions. We can throw things at them. We can throw whatever we can at them. Bottles of water, microphones, whatever we have, name tags. Because it's distracting that person. It's throwing off that person from hitting their target, from hitting you, their target. Okay? Lots of times in an active shooter situation, it may not be they're after a specific target. It may be they're after somebody. But lots of times it's numbers. It's what they're after is the numbers. Numbers of people. Okay, the number of people they can kill. So that they can get their so they can get, on page. In the media.
5 minutes of fame, yeah.
Yeah, the 5 minutes of fame, right? A little bit, I want to talk about prevention awareness. I don't want to go too much longer here because I have one short little video afterwards. But we talk about prevention awareness. I just recently added this not too long ago, probably about a year ago, because it really is important. Because we see that active shooter instances happening. And people are coming forward and saying, you know what? Gosh, he acted like this 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago. I should have said something. Or I noticed this, but I didn't think he was going to do this. Okay? They may have depression, withdrawal from their lives. Okay, withdrawal from you, maybe a coworker, right? Like I said, coworker has you sign his will, right? It's kind of an unusual thing to happen. Talking about financial problems. Talking about previous instances of violence. Okay, kids watching videos of active shooter situations. Okay, not for a research project at school. Studying all these different shootings. Kind of a little bit of a key that we really need to pay attention to. Okay, it's all of our responsibility. Okay, law enforcement, yes, can do some investigation, but how do we know about these happenings? How do we know about these precursors to these events? It's you. It's citizens of our county, of our United States, telling us what happens. What are these two key indicators out there? We'll see. So, like I said, FBI, Homeland Security have great resources for these types of things as well. Okay? They have a lot of good information to go back on. Now I just want to touch base and talk about what happens when law enforcement arrives. What to expect. Okay? What are you going to expect when law enforcement arrives? You're going to find that there are detectives arriving on scene. There are uniformed officers on scene. They are looking for the shooter. Okay? That is how we train. Like I said, in Portage County, we do rescue task force training. Okay? What that is we take paramedics in with us. We train side by side with paramedics so that they come in with us to treat the wounded after we have secured where the shooter is located. Okay? So that first officers, their first goal is to eliminate the threat, stop the threat. So they may be stepping over bodies. They may be stepping over people that are screaming, help me, help me. We train. This last RTF we had a couple weeks ago, we had like 18 to 20 actors that they had makeup, everything on that looked like they were shot, looks like they were wounded, yelling and screaming, help me, do this, do this. We have to have one goal. We have to find the shooter and eliminate that threat first. Then we help these individuals. We're bringing RTF in to save lives. Okay? So we're really proactive in Portage County by doing these things, which is great. hands when you're evacuating. Make sure that you're going to have guns pointed at you. You're going to have rifles pointed at you from law enforcement. Make sure we see your hands. Okay? What are you doing? If you have some information, great. What not to expect? I'm sorry, but we're probably not going to have please, thank you, these types of things when a law enforcement officer is coming to an active shooter situation. Our goal is to find the bad guy. That's our number one goal. We need to stop that threat. Because what happens if I stop for someone that's wounded and treat them, and there's somebody shooting down the hallway? Every shot could be another life being lost, right? So I stop to save one person here, 4 more could die there. I need to stop that threat so that no more killing can happen. So you're not going to get maybe that please comment type of, professional type of activity. SWAT. You might not get SWAT. It may take 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes to an hour to get SWAT organized and ready to go and come up with a plan to get on scene to handle the situation. Now with a person that has a barricaded gunman, there's no hostages. Can we do that? Yeah, 30, 45 minutes. They're specialized trained in SWAT, so they have different tactics. They're able to do these types of things, okay? But you're probably not going to see this at an active shooter situation. You're going to get SWAT officers, because a lot of our officers at the sheriff's office are SWAT members or SRT members. Okay? You're probably not going to get out quick. Okay? There's going to be investigators. There's going to be officers going through doing room clearing. Okay? At Ben Franklin, how long ago was that? With the scenario, false alarm? 2 years. 2 years ago? So 2 years ago, we had a false alarm at Ben Franklin. We didn't know it was a false alarm. They didn't know it was a false alarm. Was it really a quick thing that happened?
No, it was long drawn out.
Long drawn out, right? Yeah, because we're clearing rooms. We're clearing these rooms. There's officers that went, and they were clearing rooms. Kids are trained in Alice, remember? Years before that. What do you think the officers that cleared one of the rooms, what do you think they encountered?
Barricade.
Barricades? They knocked on one of the doors. Police, open the door. Open the door. They saw 20 kids holding a pair of scissors ready to attack. What they were trained to do. They said, if we didn't know you were cops, we were ready to attack anybody that came through that door. They were protecting, they were increasing their chance of survivability. They weren't doing nothing. They were doing something. Which leads me to a great quote. Theodore Roosevelt once said, in a moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing. So you need to do something. Ask yourself what-if situations. What are those what-if situations? Okay? I don't care if it's the next committee meeting that you have to go to. It may not be in this building where we have law enforcement at the meeting. It may be at a committee somewhere else. It may be when you're grocery shopping. It may be when you're at your place of employment. Ask yourself, what if? What if an active shooter would come in here? What am I going to do? What could I do? What are my options? Because if you don't think about it, I guarantee when the situations arise, then you're going to try to think about it. You're like, and you're going to delay that amount of time. If you think about it now, it gives you an idea, okay, these are some things I can do. It's going to give you a faster response to respond to the active shooter. Okay? All right, this is a great training video for any business or anything like that you would want to take this back to. Kind of reviews a lot of what we went over today, but I really wanted to touch base with you because this is an important topic, not only in Portage County, but around our nation. So this is a video put on by Homeland Security, FBI. It goes over an active shooter training of run, hide, fight, what we just talked about.
How many minutes is it? Like 10 minutes. The right-hand side. Right on the bottom. It looks like 5:55. Okay. Or 650.
than reality.
Oh, it's just not 50.
The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things.
That means bad.
Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you are ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
All right. It's basically a quick overview of really what we all talked about. Okay. Our county, a lot of businesses in our county have been going to a lot of these types of trainings. I helped with Century, training some of their security staff, but also training the members of Century. I helped with the city PD. This presentation actually was developed by myself and Plover PD and Stevens Point PD to kind of take out to the public, to train citizens. We've done it here at the county at the annex. Last year we had a training. We had a waiting list, actually. We had over 100 people attend this type of active shooter training. But businesses are really stepping up and understanding they really need to do something so that people can increase their survivability. Okay? So, remember to be prepared. Remember to ask yourself the what-if questions. Okay? Be aware of your surroundings. What is happening around you? Okay? Is this a gunshot? Is that something else? It sounded like a book falling to the ground. Could it be a gunshot? In a building? Very much, it could be. Okay? All right. Thank you guys very much. Hopefully I didn't keep you too long. And questions?
Not a question, just a comment. Thank you, Deputy, for your presentation tonight, but more importantly, thank you for going out to the schools and training our young individuals how to protect themselves in a situation that may occur.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
All
informative.
right. Have a good night.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair?
Second. Third.
All in favor, aye? Aye.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.